Okay, this is Dan from Artistic Timber Works up here on our chilly January 1st, 2024. Last week, Jason and I, aka Two Guys Timber Framers, milled and cut all of this material for a 20 by 20 deck. We've already did the mortising and put the whole deck together. Today we're going to show you how to put together an 8 by 14 timber frame deck and show you how simple it is. We're going to give you instructions on using your sawmill, how to cut perfect mortise and tenons every time. We're going to show you how to use the Makita router with a dovetail bit and a homemade jig to show you how to make perfect fitting joists with tight joinery. Next step for you to do is to make sure that everything is marked out. And I like to actually mark all the beams that I'm going to use during any specific project before I make any cuts at all. So everything is actually laid out for where we need to make our shoulders. I did make this first cut here, but I will show you how we do cut it. This is actually going to be a tenon that we're going to bring down and cut on our mill. But first we cut the shoulder. I know that it's 2 7/8 inch deep because that's the measurement of the beams that we made. So I just make a pass. That's cut 2 7/8 inches deep. And this is going to give us our cut when we actually make our tenon on our mill. And this wood here is white oak, extremely hard, is why you probably heard the saw give a little. So the same cut that we have here to build the shoulder, I'm going to need to cut it on this side as well. We're going to need to flip the beam and cut all 4 sides. Marking out a tenon, this is actually going to be a shoulder where the beam sits in, and this is actually going to be the tenon that's going to need to be mortised out. So I've already marked my beam where my beam is actually going to fit into here, and then I've centered exactly where the tenon cut should be, or mortise cut, and then I use my tenon gauge. And I've made marks right here in the center where I could actually line everything up. I also make everything square, and I use it to trace out before we use our mortiser on it. This last beam here just has 2 simple cuts, but this beautiful fine oak specimen is going to be the demonstration of the dovetailing for all of the joists. So I'm going to make all the rest of these cuts, and I'll have Jason show you how we mortise a hole, and then we'll get over to the mill. Now we're doing a knee brace, so we need to do 1.5 inch layout. We're looking for the center. We're just inch-and-a-half tenon. I put on my mark that I have here. Cold, so everything is slippery. That's going to be for our first pocket. And there's the layout for the mortise hole I need to cut. All right, your initial setup with your Makita chain mortiser is get ourselves lined up here on 0 onto your line. Clamp it down. Then we're going to check the chain exactly where we're working with this line. You can see we're just over it a little bit. So we're going to adjust it out. We're going to give it a test run. And now you can see that we're cutting exactly perfect with our line, and that our 0 is cutting this line right there. This first cut usually takes a little bit longer, and you remember that we're using white oak, which is extremely hard, and this is not a new chain. We're pushing it down to our desired depth mark. Now you pull up, bring it over to the second position. We're still cutting perfect with our line. That's where your layout becomes important, that everything is square. This machine will only cut square lines. See how much faster the second pass goes? We're still cutting perfect with our line. Down to our mark. And then a sweep. And then click to your next position. Your next adjustment that you're bringing over to cut this line is here is our marker. And I've preset our marker to cut exactly where that is. Just bring your yellow tab to the line where you're at. Make a check cut. And you can see we're right there, perfect with the line. Now imperative after you make your 3 cuts that you need to go back and clean up the bottom of the cut. And I just call it a sweep it out. You bring it down and just sweep it across the bottom. Okay, so Jason's actually made the final cuts. Here's actually how the pocket is going to look. And then other than just being a square, an old framing square has 2 different sides. This is a 2-inch side. This is an 1.5 inch side. And the old time framers would use this to check to make sure that the pocket was tight. So when we use this along with our tenon gauge, we know that everything's going to fit perfect.